What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Trust the Bank podcast. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, we appreciate you. Make sure to leave a review. We're giving away a Rashad Bateman or a whatever player jersey that you want when we hit 50 reviews on Apple Podcasts. So make sure to give us a review down there. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Make sure to leave any comments, any ideas, any suggestions that you want us to talk about in the future in the comments section down below. And also on Spotify, I believe it also has like a question bar where you guys can put like questions and feedback. So if you have questions on Spotify, you can put them in there. I use that feature every once in a while, but I think it pops up automatically now. So you guys can leave reviews there and leave feedback and questions and things like that. But Joshua, the biggest news of the Baltimore Ravens, we will get to it.
Yeah.
But the Ravens have hired some coaches. The coaching staff appears to be fulfilled. And I thought it was really funny. The person that tweeted it out, like the initial hiring of Ravens now wide receiver coach. Actually, I think it was the Chuck Smith hiring. It was like the biggest Ravens news of the week. Ravens hired Chuck Smith. But the Ravens have hired two new coaches. Chuck Smith, outside linebacker / edge coach, and then Greg Lewis as wide receiver coach. You know, both those guys are replacing players. Greg Lewis replacing T. Martin. T. Martin is now the quarterback's coach, so don't worry, he's still with the team. And then Chuck Smith replacing Rob Leonard. Joshua, what are your thoughts on these signings?
I mean, I do feel like they great signings. I mean, Greg Lewis, he's been where just past for the past couple of years, Kansas City. So I mean, what Kansas City been doing, producing wide receivers, and arguably have one of the best pass catching tight end in Travis Kelce. So I mean, it's good to have someone in the office that could possibly help us develop the wide receivers. We have been hurting on that end, so hopefully we can see an upside. You know, even from guys tweeting about Steve Saunders. You know, hopefully we can see an outside of guys of less injuries in this room, in this office and facility, because I know a lot of people are saying Rashad Bateman might possibly be a bust and may be injury prone, but it's, you know, it really goes hand in hand with the strength and conditioning and the workout plan and the eating habits and things of that nature. You know, because you don't go from playing for maybe 5 years in college healthy, then when you get to NFL, you get into an organization. The next thing you know, boom, with no injury history, you start becoming injury prone. So I mean, there's a lot of things to play in that. But you know, to see that a new possible regime that may give our players some new life and new, you know, a breath of fresh air that could possibly help some of our guys that's like, I guess we could say on the bubble, actually develop to, you know, be the players that they sort out to be on this next level. It's great to see, man. I mean, unfortunately, some of these additions are on the later end of Lamar Jackson's tenure here as a Baltimore Raven. But hey, some change is better than absolutely no change. So even though it's coming late, it's good to see it.
Yeah, and I really like both of these hirings. And Greg Lewis coming over from Kansas City, a former player. I did not know this, but if you guys know the Brett Favre, it's not really a Hail Mary, but last second touchdown pass against the 49ers in prime time on, I believe the game was on Fox. Greg Lewis is the one that catches the touchdown pass to the back of the end zone. Cool play. One of my favorite plays of all time. I did not put that together until somebody tweeted it out, and I was like, oh, no way. That's sick. So, like, didn't know of him as a player. You know, he played a long career in the NFL, but coming over from the Chiefs, something that's interesting that, you know, I've seen people talk about is maybe we bring in Mecole Hardman. Kind of interesting that we also hired, you know, maybe that brings the potential for Mecole Hardman, a very cheap option as a speedy wide receiver. I'm not saying I'm pro. I'm not saying I'm against it, you know. Just, you know, interesting connection right there. But coming over from Kansas City, they've had a lot of receivers that have been able to produce pretty well. And that's not just because Greg Lewis is the greatest wide receivers coach of all time. You know, they're playing in a really good system, but it seems like every time they plug in a wide receiver, they seem to work.
Yeah.
If it's Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, you know,
Kadarius
Toney, you could look at, you know, they had multiple guys that, like, it was like, who are these guys? And they had played like 5 years in the NFL, and then they signed him in. They had a guy named, I can't remember his name. He wore like number 80 or 84 or something like that. And, you know, Justin Watson was his name, I believe. And it was like, who is this guy? And then it's like, oh wow, he's actually kind of putting up numbers. And they lose Tyreek Hill, and they're still able to produce with MVS and Juju. And I just feel like it's good to get somebody from a really pass-heavy system that also, Joshua, you brought up the tight ends. Having wide receivers that know what it's like to play around a really good tight end, right? Hey, the tight end's going to be one finding the soft spot. Maybe you need to overrun, over pursue, do all those sorts of things to maybe draw out defenders a little bit more, maybe help out the tight end. Just some interesting dynamics that he could bring. My favorite signing, hiring, whatever you want to call it, was Chuck Smith. Chuck Smith is coming into a position that we need. Pass rush developer.
Yes.
We've got developmental guys. We've got Dalen Hayes. We've got Mr. Adafe Owe. We have some good pieces, in Ty Spouser and Mr. David Ojabo. But Chuck Smith is seen as a very, very good trainer and coach. He helps younger athletes. He helps college athletes. He helps pro athletes. And actually, Von Miller, I think people know who Von Miller is, one of the greatest pass rushers of all time, Super Bowl MVP. He holds, I know a lot of people know of Tight End University. That's George Kittle, Greg Olson, and a few others. There's also a pass rusher one, and it's hosted by Von Miller. And Chuck Smith helps with that. Chuck Smith is like Von Miller's guy.
Okay.
Von Miller's really good. Von Miller is really good at football. And Chuck Smith has this philosophy of and there's nothing groundbreaking, but he wants to make offensive linemen not know what you're going to do. You have to keep them on their toes. And that, I think, is something that the Ravens have struggled with their pass rush play from the younger guys. I think Justin Houston does it really well. I think that's why he has so much success. But I think Adafe gets into these streaks where it's like he tries the same move over and over and over again. He's just like bull rush, bull rush, bull rush, bull rush. It's like, okay, you're not Reggie White. Maybe try something else.
Yeah.
Maybe Chuck Smith could help him out with that, because we do have freak athletes. We do have quickness. We do have players that could potentially develop into really good, if not great, pass rushers. So I think that was a really good signing that I'm excited for. And a lot of people, just really quickly that I see on Twitter, they were like getting mad that we were like hiring people because they're like, man, we should be focused on Lamar. And it's like, we can focus on multiple things at once. This is not something where it's like focus on Lamar. That's how you lose in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's how you lose in life, is you get tunnel vision on doing one thing in your life and everything else falls apart.
And honestly, like I said, man, it speaks volume that, that they're willing to take the next step of possibly, bringing in a new regime. And I don't know, McConnell, I may be looking into it too deep, but, this might be a last year for Harbaugh too. So we might I'm just saying, a lot of moves are being made, and he surrounded himself around a lot of guys, that has a great track sheet. When you run excuse me, in track, when you run the 400 relays, that person that's not the strongest runner either starts off first or is like that middle guy. So you got your other speedier guys, the other guys that can catch up, to keep you in the race and finishing off the race. So right now, Jonathan is that guy on that relay team. That's not he's the starter. He's the one that he might be lagging behind everybody else. But if you got some other guys you can pass the baton to that can lap the other teams and catch up with the other teams and eventually beat them, by all means, that's what it looked like John going to do to keep his job in Baltimore. So, I mean, like I said, Ravens family, I might be looking to this too deep. This possibly could be a chopping block up year for Jonathan. But, I mean, I'm just saying, just look at the moves that are being made. Just look at the moves that are being made. It took him a long time to finally let go of Gregory Roman. He was already him and what's his name? Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank.
Wink.
They parted. They mutually parted ways. When we all saw on the field that they got into it many a times where they always bumped heads. So I mean, this is going to be a new regime. These guys got great track records. Willie Taggart honestly, that may be one of my favorite signings, just off the strength of his history um, in producing running backs. I'm looking for J.K. having a possible 1,000 yard rushing season. If they let go, Guess upwards. I'm looking forward to the second guy, maybe a Deuce Vaughn or that's my shifty guy. I forgot all about him. I don't believe I did. But there's so much talent in the draft that they could add into that running back room, and we're going to get a lot of, and hopefully we get a lot of production out of every position.